Sit down, Olivia. We need to talk about your future. That's what Paul said to me on a freezing Monday morning while he sipped a latte that cost more than my hourly wage. I'd spent the last 9 months living on caffeine and spite, rebuilding our firm's entire security architecture from scratch after the previous lead literally deleted the production database and quit. I'd saved the company $4 million in potential breach fines. I was expecting the promised promotion and a six-figure bump. Paul didn't even look at me. He just slid a single sheet of paper across the desk. It wasn't a contract, it was a press release. "We're announcing Sarah as the new head of architecture tomorrow," he said, his voice as casual as if he were talking about the weather. "She's got the senior presence the board is looking for, but don't worry, we've approved a 3% cost of living adjustment for you. It's effective next month." I looked at Sarah, who was sitting in the corner office chair, scrolling through her phone. She didn't know the difference between a SQL injection and a flu shot, but she was the CEO's niece and had a look that played well in brochures. 3%? I asked. My voice didn't shake. It felt like dry ice. "I saved this company $4 million in May alone. Sarah wasn't even in the building that week. She was in Cabo." Paul finally looked up, and the mask slipped. His eyes were cold, calculating. "The board sees Sarah's leadership on the project. You're a great worker bee, Olivia. Let's keep it that way. You're good at the technical stuff, but you don't have the face for the big clients. Don't make this weird." "Make it weird?" I stood up. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the lukewarm coffee. I just looked at the clock. It was 9:42 a.m. "I understand perfectly, Paul. I won't make it weird at all. In fact, I'll make it very simple." I walked out. No grand speech, no crying in the bathroom. I went to my desk, picked up my mechanical keyboard, my noise-canceling headphones, and a small hard drive I'd kept in my locked drawer since day one. I didn't log out. I didn't say goodbye to the coworkers who were already avoiding my gaze. I walked straight to the elevators, feeling the weight of the office lift off my shoulders with every floor we descended. By 10:15 a.m., I was sitting in my car, breathing in the scent of old upholstery and victory. They thought they'd bought my silence for a 3% raise. They forgot one tiny detail. I didn't just build the security system. I was the security system. Every line of code, every automated failover, every encryption layer had my fingerprint on it, and more importantly, it had my heartbeat. 8 days passed. I spent them at a cabin 3 hours outside the city with zero cell service. I spent my mornings hiking through the fog and my evenings reading by a fire, but I knew exactly what was happening in that office. I could see it in my mind like a movie. Without my manual daily overrides, the legacy protocols I'd patched together would start to conflict. It's like a heartbeat. If the pacer stops, the body starts to fail. The server logs would be filling with yellow warnings, then orange, then deep bleeding red. When I finally turned my phone back on, it nearly melted in my hand. 64 missed calls, 112 emails, 43 Slack messages from Paul ranging from "Where are you?" to "Olivia, this is a legal matter. Call me now." The most recent one from Sarah just said, "Olivia, the portal is slow. Fix it." She didn't even realize the entire company was about to implode. I ignored all of them. Instead, I called a man named Marcus. He was the CTO of their biggest competitor, a firm called Ironclad Dynamics. They had been trying to poach me for a year, but I'd stayed out of some misplaced sense of loyalty. That loyalty was dead now. "I heard you're having a rough week," Marcus said, sounding way too cheerful. "Word is Paul's entire client portal has been dark since Thursday. Rumor says they're losing $200,000 an hour in lost transactions. Our sales team is having a field day." "Is that right?" I leaned back, looking at the pines. "Sounds like they need a specialist, a very expensive one." "They reached out to us to see if we could bridge their API," Marcus chuckled. "I told them we don't touch amateur work, but then I saw your name wasn't on their emergency recovery list. Why is that, Olivia? Did you finally wake up?" "Because I'm on my own list now," I said, "and my list is very short." The next morning, Paul sent a text that was just a number, 50,000. He thought he could buy me back with a signing bonus. I didn't reply. 10 minutes later, 75,000 and the title. He was sweating. I could feel the desperation through the screen. By Tuesday, the firm's stock had dipped 4 points. The board was screaming. Sarah, the head of architecture, had apparently tried to fix the leak by restarting the server, which only triggered the secondary lockout I'd programmed for exactly that scenario. It was a digital bear trap, and she'd stepped right in it with both feet. I finally sent one email, not to Paul, to the entire board of directors, the shareholders, and the legal department. Subject: professional handover and intellectual property audit. It contained 3 things. First, a log of every single hour I'd worked over 40 for the last year, 682 hours, all unpaid. Second, a series of emails where Paul told me to give Sarah the credit so the client feels comfortable. Third, a formal invoice for my consulting services. My rate? $250,000, flat fee for 1 hour of work, plus a full release of liability and a non-disparagement agreement signed by Paul himself. Paul called me 30 seconds after the email hit. He was practically hyperventilating. I could hear people shouting in the background. Olivia, you're insane. 250,000? That's extortion. I'll sue you for sabotage. We'll take everything you own. Sabotage? I laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. Check the logs, Paul. I haven't touched the system since 9:42 a.m. last Monday. I haven't logged in once. The system is failing because no one is there to maintain it. That's not sabotage. That's just you realizing what I'm actually worth. You called me a worker bee, remember? Well, the bee left the hive and the honey is rotting. You have 4 hours to wire the funds to the escrow account attached. After that, the price doubles to 500,000, or you can let Sarah fix it. How's our senior presence doing today? Has she figured out how to unlock the root directory yet? He hung up on me. I went back to my book. 2 hours later, the notification popped up on my laptop. $250,000 confirmed. The release was signed. The apology from the board was attached, though it was written by a lawyer and felt like sandpaper. I didn't go back to the office. I sent them a single file, a decryption key, and a 3-page instruction manual written in plain English so even Sarah could follow it. I even included screenshots with red arrows, but I wasn't done. $250,000 was a nice payout, but it was nothing compared to what they had taken from my soul over the last year. The money was nice, but the pain they caused wasn't about the cash. It was about being invisible. So I used that $250,000 to do something Paul never expected. I didn't start a rival firm. I didn't go on a vacation. I started a holding company named Worker Bee Ventures. And my first acquisition? The debt of the building they leased. You see, Paul's company was over-leveraged. They'd spent their cash reserves on a massive rebranding campaign to make Sarah look like a tech visionary. They bought billboards with her face on them. They were behind on their corporate taxes and 2 months late on the mezzanine loan payments for their headquarters. I bought that debt from the bank for 60 cents on the dollar using my payout and a line of credit Marcus helped me secure. 3 months later, the dust had settled. Paul was sitting in that same office, probably trying to figure out how to explain another quarterly loss to the investors who were circling like sharks. I walked in, not as an employee, but with the new management team of the building. The look on his face when I stepped into the room was worth more than any wire transfer. His jaw didn't just drop. He looked like he'd seen a ghost that owned his soul. He looked at my suit, my posture, and the way the security guards nodded to me. "Olivia," he stammered. Standing up so fast, he knocked his latte over. It pooled on his desk, soaking into the press release from 3 months ago. "What are you doing here? We settled this. We paid you your blood money." "The technical side? Yes, we settled that," I said, looking around the room with a critical eye. I noticed my little desk plant was gone. They'd probably thrown it in the trash the day I left. "But the real estate side is new. Your lease is up for renewal, Paul, and I've decided we're going in a different direction with this floor plan. We're looking for tenants with more stable leadership." "You can't be serious," Paul whispered. He looked at Sarah, who was sitting in the corner looking terrified. "I'm very serious," I said. "Your lease expires in 7 days. I've decided we're going in a different direction with this floor plan. You have 1 week to vacate, 300 employees, all your servers, all your furniture, out by next Monday at 9 a.m. 1 week? We have 300 employees here. You can't do that." "It's impossible." I leaned over his desk, mimicking the way he had looked at me that first Monday morning. "Don't make it weird, Paul. It's just a business decision. I'm sure Sarah can lead the move. She has such great presence, right? Maybe she can charm the moving trucks into working for free. But even that wasn't the end of the story. I didn't just want them out of the building. I wanted the world to know the truth." While they were scrambling to find a new office in a city with 0 vacancy, I reached out to their 3 biggest clients, the ones I had personally helped during the crisis. I didn't ask them for their business. I didn't badmouth Paul. I just showed them the logs. I showed them that for 8 days, their sensitive financial data was being handled by Sarah, who didn't even have the proper security clearances or the technical knowledge to keep the firewalls active. I showed them that the only reason their data wasn't leaked on the dark web was because I had built a dead man's switch that locked the gates when they fired me. By Thursday afternoon, all 3 clients had filed intent to terminate notices. Paul's company lost 60% of its revenue in 48 hours. The company's valuation plummeted from $80 million to practically 0. Sarah tried to save face. She went on LinkedIn and posted a long, inspirational message about pivoting in the face of adversity and focusing on new horizons. She talked about toxic work environments as if she hadn't been the one creating them. It got 10 likes. One of them was from her mother. The comments, however, were filled with former employees telling the truth. I, on the other hand, was busy. I opened my new office, the one on the top floor of the building Paul just left. I didn't hire worker bees. I hired architects. I hired the people who had been ignored, the ones whose names were always left off the list. I doubled their salaries and gave them equity. The first person I hired was Sarah's former assistant, a girl named Maya, who had actually done all of Sarah's administrative work for 2 years without a single thank you. Maya knew where all the bodies were buried. "Welcome aboard, Maya," I said on her first day. We stood on the balcony overlooking the city. "Your first task? Draft a letter to Paul. Tell him we're holding his security deposit, all $85,000 of it, because of the damage his presence caused to the brand and reputation of this building. And tell him if he wants to fight it, my lawyers are bored and looking for a hobby." 6 months later, the fallout was complete. Paul's firm declared bankruptcy. The board fired him and sued him for gross negligence. Sarah vanished from the industry entirely. I heard she's working in her uncle's real estate office now, filing papers in a basement. I was invited to speak at the Global Tech Summit in November. 5,000 people were in the audience, including the biggest names in the valley. Paul was there too, sitting in the back row, wearing a cheap suit, probably hoping no one would recognize the man who lost an $80 million empire in a week. I stood on that stage and I didn't talk about code. I didn't talk about security. I talked about value and respect. "For years," I said, looking directly at the back of the room where the shadows hid the failures, "people in this industry have mistaken silence for weakness. They think that because you're doing the work instead of talking about it, you don't know what you're worth. They think you're a worker bee they can exploit. But here's the truth. The silence of the people who build things is the most expensive sound in the world, because when that silence stops, everything else stops too. You don't pay for the hour of work. You pay for the 10 years it took to learn how to do that hour in a minute." The applause lasted for 3 minutes. It was deafening. After the speech, Paul tried to approach me in the lobby. He looked older, his face lined with the stress of a dozen lawsuits. His suit was wrinkled and smelled of desperation. He didn't have a latte this time. He had a paper cup of lukewarm water. "Olivia," he whispered, his voice cracking. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I just wanted to say, you were right. I didn't see it. I didn't see you. If I could go back..." I didn't stop walking. I didn't even slow down. I had a dinner meeting with Marcus and the board of Ironclad. "You still don't see it, Paul," I said without looking back. "You're looking at the woman who beat you. You should be looking at the woman who replaced you. I'm not the worker bee anymore. I'm the one who owns the hive." I walked out of the summit and into the crisp evening air. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Maya. "The final paperwork for the Ironclad partnership is ready. You're the majority shareholder now. We just officially absorbed Paul's old assets for pennies. Should I send the announcement to the press?" I smiled, looking at the city skyline. "Send it," I typed back, "and make sure my name is the only one on the header. Bold. 16-point font? I want to make sure everyone can read it, especially those who think details don't matter." I took a deep breath. The city lights were bright, reflecting off the glass of the skyscrapers I now partially owned. I wasn't just an employee anymore. I was the one who designed the future. And the best part? No one could ever make it weird again. Because in my world, the only thing that mattered was the truth of the work, and the truth always eventually finds its way to the top. I walked toward my car, the same one I'd sat in 8 months ago, but this time the upholstery didn't smell like old dust. It smelled like new leather and the intoxicating scent of a future I'd built with my own 2 hands, line by line, brick by brick. I had $20 million in the bank, a team of 50 geniuses who respected me, and a reputation that made every CEO in the city check their worker bee list twice before they went to sleep. They knew now that ignoring the quiet ones was the most expensive mistake they could ever make. I had won, not by fighting them in the mud, but by outgrowing them until they were just shadows beneath my feet. Not by screaming for attention, but by being the most important silence in the room. And as I drove away, I saw the old building in the rearview mirror. It was dark. The lights on Paul's old floor were out. The signage had been stripped away. It was just an empty shell. Good, I thought. Some things are better left in the dark. Some stories need to end so better ones can begin. I reached for my phone and blocked Paul's number one last time. There was nothing left to say. No more invoices, no more leases, no more apologies. The silence was finally complete. The story of the girl who wanted a 3% raise was over. The story of the woman who owned the city was just beginning. And it was going to be a very, very long story, filled with every detail they said didn't matter. I pulled onto the highway, the engine humming a perfect, steady rhythm, just like the security systems I'd built, just like the life I'd finally claimed as mine. Everything was exactly where it should be. The names were right, the titles were earned, the money was counted, and the list was finally finished. I was the only one on it, and that was more than enough. I stepped on the gas, leaving the past in the dust, ready for the $1 million future I had rightfully stolen back from the thieves who thought they could own me.